Hey everyone, my name is Aaron Kraft, former Ohio State basketball player. I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in today. It's great to have you here. I had a chance to be a part of a few Young Life camps while I was in school, and they were tremendous. So I want to thank everyone for considering how they can come alongside and be a part of Young Life as they seek to care for the kids in the Olentangy and Delaware area. Thank you, and God bless.
Hey everybody, Joshua Perry here, former Olentangy Brave, Ohio State Buckeye, NFL player, and current Big Ten Network analyst. Just wanted to thank everybody for chipping in and being involved in what's going on. I've known Grady actually for quite a while, back from when I was at Olentangy High School, and he was always a true beacon for positivity and support. But in the midst of these rough times during the COVID-19 pandemic, we just appreciate everybody's support of Young Life and what you're doing and the impact that you're having upon people. So blessings to everybody. Enjoy the holiday season.
Big thank you to Joshua and Aaron and all of our sponsors, and to you all for being a part of this celebration. My name is Grady Dalzell, and I'm the Area Director for Delaware County Young Life. The stories we're going to get to share with you tonight are not possible without hundreds of adults like you advocating, investing, hosting, contributing, and more than anything else. Right now, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you're making possible. You know, simply put, in Young Life, we believe that the God of the universe loves kids like crazy, and Young Life exists to show them. What did high school or teenage life feel like to you? What comes to your mind when you think about those years? Here are just a few things that I think of. Driver's tests, senior superlatives, puberty, principal's offices, picking up formal corsages, decorating your locker, ACTs, GPAs, acne, cliques, where to sit in the lunchroom, where to stand in the bleachers, asking somebody out, getting shot down after asking somebody out, friends pitching in for gas, trying out for sports, not making the sports team, cigarettes, parking with a date, peer pressure, locker rooms, detention, varsity letters, 6 a.m. alarms, homework, lying about my homework, gossip, vandalism, love, jealousy, lust, best friends, backstabbing friends, friends inviting you to hang out with them on a Friday night, friends not inviting you to hang out with them on that Saturday night, getting grounded, college applications, hoping for a ride to school versus riding the bus, nerds, jocks, geeks, goths, popular girls, loner boys, 8th grade dances, senior prom, mixtapes, such formative years. What was high school like for you? Over the years, adolescent culture has changed a lot, but much of it is still the same. Still, most kids just hope for friendship or success or just getting through the day without anybody messing with them. However, now they're all comparing themselves to each other with as much ease as ever, as they can see through their phones who's friends with who, where their friends are at any exact moment, and if they were invited or not, while all the time being well aware of their number of followers on Instagram that reads like a popularity ranking. They're addicted to their phones, more connected than ever, yet feeling more isolated and alone than ever. And that was all happening pre-COVID. Now, our world has become even more confusing these past few months. Teenagers have witnessed a lot of change and uncertainty. Moving forward, kids aren't sure if school will continue in person or online. And if online, are my friends even gonna think about me anymore? Will there be formal dances this year? Is my next game gonna be postponed? Or the season outright canceled? Will graduations be online again? As a result, adolescents seem to be feeling more isolated and alone than I've ever seen them. More anxiety or depression and feelings of helplessness sometimes feel rampant. However, I'm excited to say that Young Life is still here. We've not gone away. We're continuing to adapt to the times, and we continue to press forward. Young Life leaders are still wading into the world of adolescence despite the challenges. In this season of confusion, isolation, and change, Young Life has the privilege to share something that hasn't changed. That there's a God who desires for each kid to know how much they are loved by Him. I'm so thankful that I was invited to Young Life when I was a freshman. That experience changed my life. Young Life's mission statement is to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. And that happened to me. I went to Young Life and had a great time, met some great people, and slowly realized that one thing these new friends and young life leaders had in common was a relationship with Jesus. I didn't know what exactly that meant, but I wanted to learn more. I remember as a kid constantly feeling pressure to measure up and impress people. Nick, my young life leader, was interested in me long before I could ever prove that I was worth it. A couple of seniors who attended club were a couple of the most life-giving, fun people I'd ever met. Just by watching them, I saw a version of high school life I previously didn't even know was possible. At club, I remember my young life leader saying that if Jesus went to my high school, I'd like him. And I remember him quoting Jesus saying that he had come to earth so that those who knew him would have a full life. I saw glimpses of this life to the full in some more kids that were involved and the young life leaders. I asked more questions, and what they shared with me changed my life forever. I learned that there's a God who loves me, that Jesus died for me, and if I want to be forgiven and welcomed into a loving relationship with God, God would welcome me home. It was the greatest news I'd ever heard, and it began me on a path that has led to me now being the area director here in Delaware County. Currently here, we have 50 volunteer leaders that spend hours and hours and hours, even through COVID, engaging in the world of kids, being with them, building relationships. We're at 9 schools in the area. We have 3 staff and a committee of 12 adults. There are dozens of people that commit to praying for us regularly, and dozens and dozens and dozens more that commit to partnering with us financially to make it all possible. Young life leaders keep showing up in the world of kids, earning the right to be heard, to share with them the love of Jesus, and walking alongside them and loving them regardless of their response. This isn't some pipe dream that maybe someday we might have some sort of impact. Literally, thousands of kids have been impacted by Young Life in the Olentangy School District and Delaware County schools, including, more recently, the life of one friend, Morgan.
Hi, my name is Morgan Powell. I'm a junior at Olentangy Orange High School. So my life before following Jesus, school and sports was definitely a big stressor for me. And it was not only like school grades wise, I feel like society made it to where like, oh, I need to be perfect at school. I felt like I was trying to like fit in and like be someone who I truly wasn't. Like all throughout middle school and even like the first year of high school. My young life leader, Taylor, and I met at school, but then we ended up becoming friends, I feel like just from hanging out. Like we went to go get coffee together and then we ended up just hanging out after that like multiple times. She invited me to fall weekend, and fall weekend's like this cool camping party friend hangout, like so fun. One of the best weekends of my life. I kind of got to experience Jesus in many different ways. I felt like I got to like figure out who he truly was. Like I didn't really know too much about him. Like when I was younger, all I did was go to church, and with church I did not know the meaning behind it. Like I would go there and sit there and be bored, and I thought it was like not very fun when I was younger. So then when I got to go to fall weekend and like actually experience who he was, it was like way cooler because I got to know like who he is and what the purpose of church and anything else was. And when I went to campaigners, my first one, I was kind of nervous. I didn't know really what it was about. I knew it was going to be a little bit about Jesus, so I got to experience a little bit of that, and it's like a Bible study hangout thing that you get to hang out with all your friends and talk about Jesus. And then I went to my second campaigners, which is when I like really got to decide that I was like, oh, I'm investing my whole entire life into this. So since I've been following Jesus and now I've got to like spend time with him and figure out who he truly was, my life's been totally different. Like it literally like flipped a whole new chapter in my life. Like I've like been able to find myself through him and like know who I am because he put like intent into me. I act and respond to things and do things a lot differently because of him. And I feel like that he's put a lot of like purpose in my life. And like before it was more of me driving to be popular or even like fitting in with people. And now it's more of like, oh, I know who I am. And through that, Jesus is gonna put people in my life that I get to love and be around. Also, my young life leader, Taylor, like invited me and a few other of my friends. We all got together and we got to read the book of Mark together, which this was my first time ever like investing time into spending time with God. So then I got to read through that, and honestly like gave me a good foundation, because I felt like at first it was kind of like in and out. Like sometimes I'd be like, oh, I'm really invested in God, and then sometimes I'd be like, oh, I'm not, honestly, so I just felt like I got like an opportunity to spend time with him and figure out who he was. This was the first time I ever got to, number one, read a whole book of the Bible, and also, number two, like understand what it was saying. There's non-stop information that I can learn about him all the time, and it's all about because like he loves us and that he wants the best for us, and that he is like gonna continue to work in our lives and how he can do like powerful and crazy things. I want to use Young Life just to like reach out to people. Like, I'm already a people person in general, but I feel like Young Life has given me an opportunity to share who Jesus is, and for people to understand who he is. And I feel like through Young Life I can go up to girls and talk to them, or even just people in Young Life, talk to them when they get there and make them feel comfortable and welcome when I get to talk about Jesus with them and hang out with them.
It's been a joy to get to know Morgan alongside my wife Taylor, who is her Young Life leader. But what is so fun is that Morgan is just one of hundreds of kids that continue to be impacted by Young Life in Delaware County right now. Young Life leaders across our area know the names of literally thousands of students. And even through COVID and us navigating through the tricky waters of all the safety precautions, we continue to be able to meet with them and continue relationships. At the front end of quarantine, it looked like audibling to our normal club events and basements, to running trivia events where we still get to proclaim Jesus, where kids still get to pull together in some way and have fun. When we hit the summer, we were able to start running campaigners outside where kids were eager to be with each other again. And all the while we got to keep talking to them about who Jesus is and what he might be trying to do in their lives and how much he loves them in the middle of this chaos. Even this fall, we've been able to still have campaigners, and we've averaged over 120 kids every single week. 120 kids like Morgan every week, getting to pull together with friends in a safe community and consider life and what it looks like right now. Also, we've been able to run outdoor trivia events or Monday night football showings, giving opportunities for leaders or students to share their story about how Jesus has impacted them. And this has led to many amazing conversations about Jesus and life and how people are feeling. One of the coolest parts for me about the impact that Young Life has in the lives of kids is the ripples as they graduate and what happens after that. To help exemplify that, I want to introduce you to Mike Chilcote, who used to lead here in our area.
I met John Petticord the first day I moved into the Lakes when he was in 8th grade. The Sieberts had just donated a play set for my family to have, and John and a bunch of his friends went over and we literally picked it up and walked it into my yard. And that started two things on that day. One was a lifelong friendship with John Petticord that continues to this day, and also a propensity for me to ask John to do manual labor and heavy lifting for no money at all. And at the time, I remember thinking, I want John to know how much Jesus loves him. And John got that. In fact, he got that so much, he has been one of the most fantastic leaders I've ever seen in his time as a leader at Orange, in his time as a volunteer leader when he was at Ohio State, at Hilliard, and also now as an area director in the South Hills of Pittsburgh. One of the best leaders I know. Thanks, John.
If I had to pick one thing that sticks out to me about my relationship with Mike Chilcote, I think it would have to be that he is a guy who loves Jesus a ton and has a full life. He was the first picture I ever had that you can love Jesus and have a life that is fun and full. And with Chris Pennington, it's similar. Chris Pennington I've known almost my whole life, and he is a guy who can make almost any situation fun and invite someone else into that situation too. And when you infuse the power of the gospel into that, Chris makes almost anyone feel loved and valued.
So I grew up a street over from John Petticord. Him and I both went to Orange High School together. And I remember in high school, John being someone who was so committed to laying their life down for the sake of Jesus and the gospel to be proclaimed to others. And the last thing that was on his mind was his reputation and standing out in front of others. He just cared so much about the name of Jesus being shared around our school. And I remember my senior year, he had already graduated and I was coming into my senior year, and he took me out to breakfast and casted that same vision into my life of what would it mean to take the gospel so seriously and to see what Jesus has done for us and to lay my life down for others in that same breath. And that same message that Orange leaders were constantly sharing in my life, just as John had, pushed me to want to be a Young Life leader myself and to share that gospel message with kids around the city of Columbus. And in the spring of 2014, I got placed at Dublin Scioto High School, and I met a ton of awesome kids, one being a freshman Derek Top, who was intimidating for a few reasons. One, because of how tall he was, and two, because of, at that age, how cool and confident he was. And I remember sharing that same gospel message that I was taught over the years at Orange High School, and to see the root that it took in Derek's heart and life has been one of the greatest privileges that I've gotten to witness in my life. And to see him lay down his life for the sake of the gospel and to be a minister in all areas of his life has been amazing to watch.
Chris Pennington was someone who I know will never give up on me. That he's with me side by side no matter what's going on in my life. No matter how many times I probably frustrated him being this inconsistent campaigner kid who thought he was really sweet. Chris didn't view me how I viewed myself. He viewed me how Christ viewed me. And because of that, he never gave up on me. He was always rooting for me. He was always pushing for me to become closer with Jesus. And because of that, my senior year, I got to get a little taste of what that looks like, to also lay down my life and to love others and view others as Christ would. And that inspired me to want to keep doing it in college and eventually become a wildlife leader, where I get to pour into middle school students. And something I want those middle schoolers to know is that they are so loved by Jesus. I see them going all over the place trying to be validated by all the wrong things and always running dry. But I want them to know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that Jesus loves each and every one of them individually, and he knows their name.
It's so encouraging for me to think about. But what's amazing is that it's just one example of the ripples of what happened. Literally, this is happening hundreds and hundreds of times over. Over 250 graduates from our area have gone on to be Young Life leaders elsewhere, many of whom have gone on to become Young Life staff people. When this happens, those leaders and staff that go to lead at other schools meet themselves hundreds of kids at those schools, build relationships for years with them, and impact those. We're talking about thousands and thousands of kids that have been impacted directly as a result of the work going on in our area. This is happening over and over and over again, and we want it to keep happening. So this is what it takes for us to have Young Life in our area. Like I mentioned before, we have a committee of adults who act as a leadership team. We have volunteer leaders if you're interested in actually working with kids. Our financial budget for this fiscal year is about $204,000, and we still have about $32,000 we need to account for. We're trying to raise our monthly financial giving by about $3,000 in order to put us in a healthy place where we can continue to plan, train leaders, and figure out how we're going to get into those schools we are not yet in, how we can train better leaders and have a more deeper, fulfilling impact. You'll have a chance to consider how maybe you might want to help us reach the next kid and engage the next layer. Right now, I'm excited to get to introduce to you a good friend of mine, Tift Gannon. He and his wife, Corinne Gannon, have been leaders at Liberty High School since 2008. But they also have several kids. They live in Delaware County. They're taxpayers. They're invested here, and they're going to share a little bit about why they care so much about investing in Young Life.
Hello, I am Tift Gannon. I'm so excited to be here today because I want to share why my wife, Corinne, and I are still involved with Young Life, how we're involved, and how you might be able to be involved. I think the story that I'll share will be relatable to you because not only am I still a volunteer, but I actually live in Powell. My wife is a teacher at Olentangy Liberty High School. We volunteer at Olentangy Liberty High School as volunteer leaders along with a number of college students. But we're taxpayers. We have our own kids in the school system that we are so excited about them getting a little bit older and being able to explore their own faith with adults that care about them unconditionally that aren't their parents. Because I know, and I'm seeing it now with my oldest, that they don't necessarily listen to me in the way that I would. But beyond that, let me share kind of my story of how I've gotten to this point, or my wife and I have gotten to this point. So we both became leaders in the late 90s. We moved to Powell when she took a teaching job, and I took a transfer to Columbus, and we became volunteer leaders at Olentangy Liberty High School at that point back in 2008. In 2015, we bought the house that we thought would be the house that we'd raise our family in, and it still probably will be. Soon after, we started having club in our basement. And even though we had been involved for a number of years and saw God do a huge number of amazing things in our lives and the lives of the kids that we've been able to meet, it was a unique thing having club in our basement and really starting to live in what I would describe as a way that's disruptive. What we did as volunteer leaders and the way we started participating in God was disruptive to our goals, our life, and our agenda, but it was wonderful at the same time. I do want to share something that really special that happened to us in the summer of 2016. We had gotten into some financial difficulties. We had a number of bad cars that went terrible. We had some things that went wrong in our new home. And we had made some pretty significant financial commitments to a number of former Olentangy Liberty leaders and graduates that had gone on to be on staff with Young Life elsewhere in the country. And at that point in time, we realized that we could have moved back on those commitments, and those folks would have understood. They knew that we cared about them. But because we felt God asking us and telling us to step up our level of involvement, we decided to continue on with those commitments. And I won't lie, it was very financially challenging for us for a significant period of time to be able to live with those commitments. There were some things that we chose to go without on an ongoing basis, and in terms of fun trips and things like that, to be able to continue forward with that support. But what I think making that decision, standing by that decision, did for us was unleash a new experience for us and what it means to actually follow Jesus and to experience all the blessings of being linked up to Him. What I found is anything that I would have considered a cost that we had paid has been far outweighed in the adventurous living that we get to do. So what I want to ask you to do is actually to join in that same way. I can't tell you what God will do in your life. I had no idea what He was going to do in my life and my family's life by us making that type of commitment and paying a real significant ongoing cost to support what God was doing through the ministry of Young Life. But what I can say, and I fully believe, is that if you choose to make a commitment of that sort, of that nature, I am convinced, and I promise you, what God will do through that and what God will do in your life, I fully believe will exceed anything that you could have done with those dollars in any other way. I say this not as somebody that is asking because I don't do that. My wife and I are considering how we might further increase the cost that we might pay. And it's not because we have a whole lot of additional discretionary money in these pandemic times. It's because I want more of what God gave to me starting in 2016. Even though I've been leading and following Jesus for well over, at that point, almost decades, I never expected the experience that I would have by truly making some sacrificial giving decisions. My wife and I have been absolutely blessed by seeing how the time and energy and finances and home that we have shared has transformed the lives of dozens, if not hundreds of kids over the time that we've been involved with Young Life. And I don't want to forget that that's what all of this is about. There's so many things that have happened in my life. When I go to the student section on Friday nights at a football game and I see the hundreds of kids up in those stands, and that I realize that there's hundreds of kids that aren't there, I realize we need leaders, we need staff people, and we need community support to continue to reach and give every one of those kids an opportunity to hear about a God that loves them and an adventure that He invites them to be a part of. Would you help us with that? Would you lean in a little bit and share in carrying that burden along with other people in our community, myself included, both financially and through a lot of other different ways, so we can continue to have leaders in those stands, at those schools, in those practice fields, and in those communities. What I want to ask of everybody that's listening to this is that you would make a decision to get involved or to jump in any sort of way possible, but do it in a way that does actually have a cost. I think that's the key. There needs to be something tangible in which we go without in terms of resources, such that God can then use for His discretion and bless us by the way we hold loosely to these things. Some of the practical ways in which you might do that would be to merely host leader dinners, or to contribute to volunteer gifts that we give at Christmas, or to host different types of events, or maybe do a camp sponsorship. There's any number of different ways in which you might be involved. In order to continue the growth that we anticipate and the growth that we need to have in terms of volunteer leaders and staff people to support the growing population to reach every single kid in Delaware County, we need to raise additional funds on a monthly basis, not one-time gifts, but on a monthly basis to provide stable foundations for our finances throughout the year. The number we want to hit is about $3,200 a month. I would encourage you, as you listen to this, as you think of what you might do, to think of some sort of number that might be the largest number you can imagine giving as a one-time donation. And here's what I would suggest you do. Take that number, divide it in half, and give it on a monthly basis. I believe that if we do this, or if you do something along those lines, that's probably a number that has some sort of cost. There might be some sort of thing that you might go without in order to support that. The reason I invite you to do this is because what I experienced, starting in 2016, was far beyond anything that I experienced to that point in terms of following Jesus. It has been so good, and I want everybody now to be able to experience the adventure that I get to do on a daily basis. Thank you so much for joining us. One final ask that I have. Would you, no matter how you choose to be involved, make sure that you share your name and contact information with us. What we really did tonight was to celebrate what God has done this past year and to pre-celebrate what He's going to do in this upcoming year. We want to share that story with you. And if that's the only commitment you can make, we want that too, because we want to tell you what God is doing, because we believe it's amazing and that's something people should hear about, because it's changing lives every day in Delaware County. Let me end our time with just a short prayer. God, thank you. Thank you that you've blessed us to be able to take part in this crazy thing that you're doing through Young Life in Delaware County. Thank you for the lives of kids that have been changed to this point, and the lives of the kids that we're going to meet tomorrow and the day after. Or thank you for the larger number of kids we're going to be able to meet, because of the way we'll increase our resources, both in terms of volunteer and staff people, so that every kid has a chance to hear about who you are. And I pray that you would equip us to be able to do justice to sharing that amazing, adventurous invitation to kids tomorrow and the day after. In your name, amen.